Hey dude, what's up? I have got my review of Friktion by Reason Studios, the new modeling synth they just released, and it is awesome. In this video, what I'm going to do is play you a song I did completely using Friktion with the exception of a drum loop. The reason I have a drum loop here instead of programming my own drums is because I didn't think I was going to like Friktion as much as I did, so I wasn't really planning to be inspired by it, but this thing took me by surprise and inspired me to write this really cool, fun song that I think sounds great and was a lot of fun to work with in a very quick amount of time. This was like 2 hours of work here, so I need to go back, redo the drums. But first, let's listen to the song, and then we'll dig into the specifics. I'll tell you why Friktion is good, I'll tell you where it's weak, and I'll help you hopefully decide whether or not Friktion is right for you. All right, let's take a listen, and remember, every single thing on this song, aside from the drums, is Friktion. So I did lie. There was also a sample of a vinyl record playing in the back. But otherwise, that was all Friktion, and I think that was all dope. This hasn't been mixed at all, a little panning, but basically this is the sound of Friktion. I will say that I've got a bit crusher and some distortion on the master bus, a little bit of sidechain compression, and just a maximizer and bus compressor to keep things tight. I also am running just about everything through Valhalla Room for a reverb. I have turned off the reverb on every Friktion channel just about because I don't like it. That's the only real downside I would say to Friktion, is that it doesn't have a great reverb built into it. But that's not a big deal because there is a world of third-party reverbs out there. Before we go farther though, I do want to let you know that I have an incredible mixing template for Reason. If you are mixing your songs in Reason, you need to download this template because it will save you a ton of time and ensure that you get better sounding mixes by having all the bussing, all the effects sends set up, everything you need to start quickly creating great mixes from the go. There's a link down below to download that for free. Go get it. Now let's talk a little bit more about Friktion. Okay, so what's the deal with Friktion? Well, it's a modeling synth. It can model strings especially, you know, stringed instruments like orchestral stringed instruments. But it can also model not just the bowing, but the plucking of stringed instruments. It can also kind of do a lot of other weird stuff, though, too. From xylophone-esque sounds to some drums, some guitar and bass sounds even. And it's just really an overall powerful synth. I'm going to give you a very quick overview of the interface, and then we'll listen to some of these individual channels and break out the mix, and I'll kind of talk to you about what's going on. So first you have the resonator. This is where the sound comes from. It's kind of like the basic thing that's being modeled. And you have multiple violins, violas, cellos, voices, banjos, 808 rims, guitars, and you have a few parameters to adjust them. I have found that these are probably the least useful of the parameters. They tend to, in my opinion, not make it sound better. They tend to make it sound worse if you go to the extreme settings. But I think, you know, it's nice to have the flexibility. Then you can choose which one of the two main sounds are being used. Is it going to be a bowing motion? And you have a lot of tools to shape the sound of the bowing, from how much noise the bow is there to what position the player is playing in. Or is it going to be more of a pluck with a pizzicato or a collegno where you hit it with the back of the bow? And you'll have a lot of parameters for dialing that in. You also have a bunch of other additional articulations that you can throw on top of that. So here you kind of shape the strings, and you can have dampening on it. You can choose whether or not harmonics are being played on it. You can control the amount of vibrato, turn it off, or the amount of tremolo. You can, you know, switch between mono and polyphonic playing, whether or not it's going to be like gliding, like wow, wow, or whether it's going to be legato. You can do some built-in modulation here. You've got a lot of keyboard controls. You've got a basic EQ. You've got your reverb, which I said I'm not really a big fan of. You also have the stereo imager, which is pretty nice, and the ability to make it sound like there's more players between, I think, 4 and 0, I guess, if you turn it off. And then you can, by adjusting the timing, you can kind of choose how chorusy it sounds. And finally, and most importantly, the articulation, which is what you use to kind of control the organic swell of the instruments. So that's the basics of Friktion. It seems overwhelming, but it's really not. It took me about 40 minutes to really get into it. And I pretty much designed almost all of the sounds in this myself, even though they say violin solo mod. Most of these are not violin solo mods. I've just sort of gone from a bunch of patches. So it's really easy and fun to experiment with creating your own sounds and dialing them in. Now let's listen to the different instruments sort of in the mix. So we'll just go here, we'll turn loop on, and we'll start with the longer playing, the cello and the bass. And actually, let me turn off the lo-fi stuff, just so you can hear it pure. I am going to keep I'll turn off the reverb as well, just so you really hear what it sounds like. And let's add the viola. That's a pretty good string section. It's a very good string section in the context of dance and hip-hop and pop. Right? I've done a video, it's going to be in this playlist, which compares Friktion to Spitfire Studio Strings, which is a really lovely string library that actually records real strings in a beautiful hall, the way they would sound like orchestrally. And I think what that video showed is that Friktion sounds very different from Spitfire Studio Strings, and they have their strengths and their weaknesses. I don't know that I would trust Friktion just to be a solo string background piece. Like, this sounds pretty good, but if you compare it to what you have in solo strings, I think it just doesn't quite live up. But at the same time, solo strings is too massive and large to fit into a space like this hip hop song or like into an EDM song. You don't want these massive orchestral strings. They just sound too big. They're not controlled enough, and Friktion really fits in well, and it's easy to dial in the right song you need. So if you're looking for sounds to sit in a modern style mix, yeah, I think Friktion is good. The bowing sounds really good here. It just sounds natural. I think the pizzicatos, which we're about to turn on, sound really good. I think it's one of the best things that they modeled. That just sounds really nice. Here we have a bass guitar done in Friktion. I don't love this, but it works. I think there's much better bass plugins out there. I would probably play bass live myself for this. But in a pinch, it's pretty good. It works. Then we've got the lead violins, which these sound a little sharp and whiny to me. I don't love them. They're probably my least favorite of the sounds. Like, I like the bass more. The bass works more. And it's not supposed to be a bass guitar synth. Anyway, but I don't love these violins. But some of this other stuff that's about to come in is really cool. So you got like this spacey bell pluck. I love this. You got a little xylophone that's going to come in with some delay on it. Right here. Like, that's a really cool sound to me. Very mysterious, moody. We've got a pad. And I really love this pad. Like, it's got organic elements and synth elements to it, which I think is really cool. And finally we have this lead, which I think is really cool. Using that glide feature. And the tremolo. So that actually brings me to a couple things I do want to point out that I'm not. So with the tremolo here, you don't have the option to sync to tempo, which seems like a missed opportunity because sometimes you want the tremolo to tremolate, I don't know, vibrate in sync with the music. And there's not a sync to tempo. So basically what I found myself doing is going online, getting a calculator and having to convert BPM into hertz. And then this thing is a little finicky. You can't, for whatever reason, you can't just directly type in numbers to Reason plugins. So you got to hold down shift and slowly drag and go back and forth. So that's a bit of a pain in the ass and a missed opportunity. But otherwise, I love the flexibility. For example, solo strings by Spitfire and a lot of the other professionally sampled packs, you know, they don't have any ability to dial in tremolo. There's like a fast tremolo and a slow tremolo, and that's that. So the ability to have some control is really nice and welcome. Let's turn all the solos off. Now let's hear it all in the mix, and we'll bring back in the reverb and the effects. I think the leads work, violin works in the mix, and the bass works, but it sounded a little harsh to my taste. Now let's bring the reverb back in. You can hear it's just much bigger now. Now let's turn on some of the processing. And there you have it. I think Friktion is a really fun, powerful instrument that lets you create to your heart's content modern sounding strings and other cool instruments that you might not be able to find elsewhere. And I would definitely recommend it. I had a lot of fun using it. It's inspiring, and it's really limited only by your creativity, what you can create. What do you think? Did you agree with? What do you think? Would you consider getting Friktion? Is it the type of synth you're looking for? What could they do to improve it? And what type of synth would you like to see? Leave a comment below. What do you think? Do you like Friktion? What types of synths would you like to see them create? Leave a comment down below and share your thoughts on where you think Friktion gets it right and wrong. Don't forget to download your free mixing template. Thanks so much for watching. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. Bye.